we going live? It says live.
It says live.
Okay.
Up there in the corner.
Hey, my computer turned on, so I'm gonna leave and then come back in. Is that okay? So I
believe
can
we're
leave
live,
the
Eric.
computer and not my phone.
It says we're live, but it says we're not live on Facebook.
Hey, my computer turned on, so I'm gonna leave and then come back in. Is that okay? So
I believe we're live, Eric.
Computer and not my phone.
It says we're live, but it says we're not live on Facebook.
Hey, my computer turned on, so I'm gonna leave and then come back in. Is that okay? So
I believe we're live, Eric.
So we have too much stuff
Eric, you
going
can go ahead and just start introducing people. I can see us live on YouTube.
Okay. We're not live on Facebook, though. So, anyways, welcome. We're having some technical difficulties as, again, this is the first time we're doing this as a virtual live event. I'm kind of glad that we're doing this as a faculty so we can kind of learn about this as our seniors will be doing this. So with us today, we have Associate Professor Megan Gall. We have Assistant Professor Aaron Cross, who had to log out for a minute and will log back in. And then we have Associate Professor Heather Stark, who is teaching at Marshall University. She did teach 2 years at Doane. We both started at the exact same time, so I had the pleasure of being able to teach with her. While at Doane, she taught a lot of classes. So she is jack of all trades. Currently now, she is basically all teaching art history at Marshall, like I said. I think you got your undergrad, you got your MA at Marshall, and then she went and got her PhD at Ohio State, or the Ohio University, not Ohio State, sorry.
Ohio University.
Yeah,
correct.
I made that bad, sorry. People will jump on me about that one later. But anyways, welcome all faculty and welcome everybody that's watching. Again, we are having technical difficulties. If you can't follow us on Facebook, please go over to the YouTube channel. I did share a link with everybody, so please go over to the YouTube channel and make sure that you follow that or subscribe to that so that you can watch us. If we don't have technical difficulties, we will re-air this. It's always saved, so again, apologize for that. But getting started, I will share this PowerPoint that we're going through. I will share the exact PowerPoint. The recording will always already be saved, but this PowerPoint I will share on Facebook so that you can go back through it at your own time. There is a little juror information, so if you would click, you don't need to click on Heather Stark right now, but if you do, it brings up like her page at Marshall. It tells a little bit of information about her. It sounds like looking at it, you travel on sabbatical. You teach all summers international, or you used to before COVID. So,
I'm a sad face. I miss it so much. Yeah.
So that's kind of great. But what we'll do is we'll enter this virtual Juried Student Art Exhibition. So Megan, if you could please enter. Okay. So this jumped into the left room. When you do it on the PowerPoint, it will jump into the middle room, which we'll get there. But this is the far left room. So as you can see, these rooms are set up. This is the left wall. There's a middle, and then we'll go right. Once you see the right wall, that's the end of the exhibition. So this is the middle. This is the main room that we'll go towards with the PowerPoint. You will have the juror statement at the bottom that you can read through. We're not going to read through it right now because she's pretty much going to summarize it throughout this whole exhibition. But I'm just kind of like, that's how you go about moving to room, is you are able to click on the works. So if you click on the works, they will get and have the details of all the information that you were needing. And then you would just have to hit the back button. Okay. So out of this show, I think we had 42 submissions, and I believe 21 of the works got into this show. I'm going to kind of let Associate Professor Stark talk about this. Kind of, if you would, talk about each piece, your overall summaries. Again, we do have an hour. If there are questions, please feel free to comment, post those. We will be able to see them and we will be able to answer them, or we'll be able to ask Heather about some questions if needed. But what we're going to do is, if you want to, if Megan, if you want to start with if we can go all the way to, it doesn't matter. We can start here. We can go all the way to the beginning. Okay, so if we want to start here, Heather, if you kind of want to talk about this, if we want to click on the images, we can, or if you want to talk like this, it's up to you.
Okay, well, should I maybe start out just by...
Yep, go ahead.
Add a little bit more about who I am. As Eric said, I ended up finding myself moving to Nebraska for my first tenure track job back in 2009, and did spend 2 years teaching at Doane there in Crete. Really enjoyed my time there and was very excited to have the opportunity to see what students are up to at this point. As Eric also said, I'm currently an associate professor of art history at Marshall University, which is in Huntington, West Virginia. And I mainly teach 19th and 20th century courses in art history, all wide variety of things. But while I was at Doane, I was still able to teach studio courses. And my background, as was mentioned, is mixed. I have degrees in both painting, art history, and my PhD was in something called interdisciplinary arts, which was a kind of novel program that brought together different areas in the arts as a whole. So, you know, I have only juried, I don't know, a handful of shows in my life. This is maybe only the second time I've ever juried a student show at the undergraduate level, but it is the very first time I've ever done it in the place we are now, very remotely, right? So, you know, that's poses so many problems that, you know, of course I thought about before I began to review the works. But once I really started looking, I realized just the next layer of difficulty that adds. Of course, when I was judging, I had to judge by photographic documentation alone. Maybe when it comes to digital work, to graphic design work, that's not so difficult, but, you know, and as these images are flashing up, but when it comes to something like a painting, even though, of course, that is a two-dimensional work that, of course, we perceive as typically having a flat surface, but just not being able to really see really closely all the nuances of the application of paint, the brushwork. I mean, there were just so many things that made it difficult. Let alone trying to judge 3D work. Good example here, where I'm only seeing it from one specific static point of view. So yeah, I had my work cut out for me. I was definitely really pleased and excited to see just the quality of work that was submitted as a whole. What I really began to see as I looked at the work submitted was not only especially very specifically in the works that were selected for the exhibition, not only close attention to craftsmanship, I think that was one of the big factors that determined many of the works selected, but also just the ideas that were underlying these very interesting forms. So I guess I don't know if you want me to, if I should talk more about that now or just start talking about the works selected, perhaps?
If you want to start talking about the work selected, that will work.
Okay.
I know Megan was kind of going through them so people could kind of see what all made the show, which is great.
Sure. I was trying to be as inclusive as possible and, you know, really trying to represent a wide variety of media as well. So in terms of the drawings, the still life with charcoal, I'm guessing that might be pronounced Sessibar, perhaps. If I mispronounce anybody's name, I apologize. But in all of the drawings, whether they were graphite or charcoal, I really saw a nice attention not only to light and shadow, so to value as a whole, interesting use of line, but also interesting kind of compositional practices and approaches. Of course, we all draw still lives, but this one especially, I thought, had a really wonderful and high contrast between those light and dark gradations, and it had a kind of sense of drama that to me made this particular still life stand out. Of course, in part, that could have something to do with the lighting in the studio, but it also made me think a lot about kind kind of Renaissance practices of chiaroscuro and almost kind of getting into that kind of tenebrist effect where you see that like the forms emerging from that murky, dark background. All right.
Heather, you can just talk about a piece. I'll try and find it.
Okay. All right. I'll just kind of go with what I'm seeing on the screen right now. The work on the left in this room that is created primarily out of straws under the Sea Hazard by Kaya Tennis. I mean, I thought this was, you know, in certain ways, a simple approach to the idea, but very effective in the way that the medium chosen directly connected the form and the content. You know, so right away, without a title or anything, I would understand that she's, you know, really trying to make a statement about plastic waste in our seas and our oceans, and just, you know, the horrific state that so many bodies of water are in this country. And also just the way she kind of in a very simple but very effective way manipulated those straws into these different sea forms. You know, they kind of become sponges. What I always love with sculpture of any sort is when someone can take a material that we know to have one very specific quality and begin to manipulate it in a way that we start to read the textures as something other than that thing that we know it is. So I thought that was quite effective. Again, being three-dimensional, I wish I could have seen it in all 360 degrees. But yeah, with this one, it was definitely that kind of merging of the form and the concept. The work in the middle, the Prismacolor.
Sorry, I'll go back.
That's okay. You know, one thing I should also mention that, of course, is lost. You know, I had to remind myself constantly to pay close attention to dimensions, right? You know, when you're looking at just JPEGs, or even when you're looking at the exhibition as it's laid out in these gallery spaces, you forget about size, right? And as we all know, that's really important, and it really impacts the way we're going to interact with the works. You know, small and intimate, a work like this, Heritage by Emma Ryan, you know, kind of medium size, a little bit larger, I think, than I expected it would be at first glance. Again, a very classic still life, but I was impressed here by the technique, by the use of color, the creation of value, the attention to detail. I would say very particularly in this drawing, those apples really stand out to me. You really get a sense of kind of the glossy texture, the skin of the apple. That, along with the drapery, the bust, as someone with a background in two-dimensional art, I definitely understand how difficult it can be working with colored pencil to achieve those types of effects. So I was very impressed with that. All right. Yeah, we could go to I think it's console. Is that, what is the wire sculpture over on the left? Center console. By Connor Gutierrez. So size, it was actually a little larger than I thought it might be, but still about the size that I kind of was conceiving of. You know, Eric, I know you've done this with students for a long time. I'm sure Megan and Aaron have also witnessed a lot of wire sculptures being made, especially in 3D design classes or beginning design classes. Whenever I see these wire sculptures, of course, my art historian brain always goes back to Alexander Calder and those wonderful early precedents for these types of forms. And so by prefacing this, I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of these done by a lot of students over the years. And what impressed me with this work was really the attention to detail. I'm not gonna lie, I was really thrilled when I realized those two fishing rods were on the back of the boat. When I zoomed in and I could really see, I could see the seats, you know, I could see all of the parts of this fishing boat. The articulation, I thought, was pretty well done as well. You know, some little, I don't know if the joints were soldered or probably, I'm guessing. Maybe?
Yeah, they were soldered, and I
Okay.
apologize for the image, but taking wire sculptures are pretty hard to take.
Yeah, but and you know, maybe they're not perfect, but yet it works. And it, again, getting back to judging everything through a photograph, that was also a really good example of presenting the work to a juror, I would argue. Yeah. So yeah, why don't we go to the book? Because can I ask questions of you guys at this time too, while we're going through these these works? So there were two of these books that I chose for the exhibition, both somewhat similar. I guess I don't know if you guys want to wait and talk about this later, that's fine, but I'm just kind of curious what the assignment was for these works.
Sure. So this is part of Graphic Design 4, which is usually the last class they take before they enter into their Advanced Professional Practices course, where they're really starting to create that self-directed project that they're going to take on for the entire year. And the intention behind these books are to kind of collect and reflect upon your influences, and also you can incorporate your inspirations. But the idea is to start to reflect on what it is about design that attracts you to design, or other kind of outside influences that potentially pointed you in this direction. So the idea is they have to curate all of the content, they have to gather all the content, they have to write the reflections, and then they also have to create that curatorial process across a series of pages, so that editorial component.
Well, that would have kind of been my guess in terms of the assignment. I thought those two really stood out in terms of everything from the information included to just the basic layout, use of typography. Yeah, you know, of course, Artemisia's included, so I'm going to be happy about that. But yeah, and also both this and the other book that was selected, I think I just selected two, if I'm remembering correctly. You know, I got that sense of a love for what was going into that book, you know, of a real sense of caring as to how those images and the ideas behind the images, the historical information was being presented to the audience. Now, in this one, experience design, I'd say it really kind of creative in terms of the way typographical faces are being used. Really shows a strong understanding of the history of typography, as well as the history of art, but definitely the history of graphic art in general. And a lot of work, right? I mean, you know, as you were saying, these are kind of comprehensive projects, and I can see the amount of time put into these books, definitely.
And these are books that they do print and turn into a piece. So they're usually between 56 and 60 pages.
Yeah, that's...
So we don't have to go into all those.
Okay. All right. We could go to maybe the one in the middle, Who We Were Before. One of two, I believe, I think both of the self-portraits in, or is this the, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember everything that I chose. I feel like there are two, yeah, I think they're both by the same student.
They are.
By Peachy Ramsey, okay, yeah. Yeah, Self-Love, this particular work in oil, I think, very, well done. It really captures a sense of expression. It's a difficult thing to do a self-portrait. It's a very difficult thing to use, especially oil paint, to kind of capture flesh tones. And I think this shows a lot of potential in terms of depicting the human figure. But I would probably argue that the other work accepted by the student maybe just a little bit more formally interesting to me. Well, maybe a lot more formally interesting in many ways. This idea of who we were before, this idea of using, like, revealing and concealing forms, right? Kind of the really, again, the thing that stood out to me with a lot of the work selected was how those formal choices were attempting to relay some ideas, meaning. This one as well, since it is just colored pencil and ink, at first I thought it was a collage, you know, in the JPEG, and then of course I looked closer and I saw how she was. But I guess right now, since I'm teaching my Women in Art course, which focuses a lot on women artists in the 19th and 20th century, it makes me think a lot about what I always tell my students is so-called second wave feminism. There have been a lot of those waves way before second wave feminism, and the kind of embrace that those artists had of these materials that were kind of traditionally deemed as gendered, as women's materials, you know, quilting, working with textiles, working with embroidery, really taking back those media and using them as a means to express self. So that's definitely something that I thought about here. Also, just again, this idea of kind of the quilted form as being a representation of both kind of consonance and dissonance, you know, kind of coming together and falling apart at the same time. Yeah, maybe the one over on the left, the oil painting. So one thing I didn't realize about the Treehouse Treasures when I first looked at it was how small it was, 10 by 8. That actually made me even more excited about it, because it was that kind of sense of intimacy that I think, coupled with the subject matter, coupled with the motifs chosen, the way they're situated in what I read as a cardboard box, it draws you in. You know, you think about how when something's so small, you have to get very close. You have to look, you have to investigate. You know, and all of those ideas seem to go hand in hand with the objects placed in the box. Of course, the flashlight, right? Think of your childhood. You know, it evoked a lot of childhood memories for me. Having that little box of treasures that you know, could take wherever you wanted. You know, maybe, or even doing it in your room at night, pulling out the flashlight. That one card that means something. That, I'll be honest, it's a little bit personal, but the little picture there makes me think of things my grandmothers collected, makes me think of these kind of domestic goods that really connect us to those people and places that, you know, have been important to us in our lives. The articulation of the shell. Again, I know a lot is lost when I'm looking at these in a digital format, but the articulation of the shell is also, I think, really well done. And then, of course, I automatically noticed the binding of the book. And I mean, golden books, right? Is that right? What are they called, golden books? I mean, I know
Yep.
I had tons of them when I was a little kid. And I was like, oh, you know, so just that those things were so recognizable, you know, it brought back a lot of memories. And again, really nice cohesion there of the forms and the ideas. Well, in terms of, you know, the other drawing that we see here over on the left, I saw kind of the same qualities in each drawing that I selected. You know, a lot of qualities that go back to those basic building blocks of form, you know, that students at Doane are learning, that our students here are learning through their, you know, foundations experience. In terms of value range, this one is not as wide as the first one we were looking at. And of course, medium has a lot to do with that as well. It's drawn with graphite. But really a wonderful articulation of the textures of all of the forms. And in particular, I would argue the drapery, the cloth. As well as the, what I'm reading as here, I'm trying to remember if I read it this way when I was looking at the JPEGs, the little vase that's kind of over to the right-hand side that looks either as if it is glass and translucent or metallic of some sort, but to get a sense of those textures. The ceramic works that you see here in the middle, I think there were 2 examples of what I'm assuming were thrown on the wheel works. So, I mean, they just look, again, very well crafted, interesting textures, glazing techniques. Yeah, and there was another, I think it was a simple bowl that I also saw those same qualities in. As someone who is not a ceramist, I know how difficult it can be. I remember watching Eric doing it and being very jealous of the speed and proficiency with which he could throw vessels, but I know it is not an easy thing. This one, Blue Haze, again, the glazing technique that kind of evokes a landscape to me a bit. The blue in the middle, almost at the same time, reads the sky and water. And then the outer circumference of the vessel with these nice kind of earth tones, terracottas and grays. You're going to see stone. So see all these references to natural elements. Which is, I guess, the theme is kind of unfolding here, that a lot of the works I chose were really all about how the form was relaying some idea. Works that seem to have a strong sense of expression. Let's see. I've talked about several of them. I know we already looked at those 2. What else well, since I've been dominating here, what else could you all add about assignments related to the works? I know Megan already gave me the background for the book assignment, but what about some of the other works that made it into the show?
Well, I think you have to also realize that, this show has reflected from last year and then this first semester. So it's kind of dealing with all the assignments that can happen during COVID. So there's not much that can really hands-on. So like second semester last year, we were all staying at home. So not a lot of assignments were getting done to the equivalent that we wanted to. So
Yeah.
a lot of these were previous to that or just done in this semester, this first semester this year. So I think that has a lot to do. And we have to go through all the COVID protocols and stuff, and students are still producing this type of work, which reflects our type of students that we're getting at Doane and the faculty, I believe. So I can talk a little bit about the ceramics in 3D. So basically, a lot of the pieces that got in here were beginning courses. So beginning throwing, beginning, just 3D design.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just basically learning the elements and principles of design, especially as a 3D element. Throwing, can you take this this clay body and shape it, mold it into a functional vessel, either a place setting, a bowl. What the students had to do was they had to go do a lot of glaze research and come up with their own glazes that they wanted to use. Some of them used previous glazes, but it all they tested and tested, and then they actually like the place setting, the dinner sets. They had to actually do like a cookbook and put the recipes in there with their images. So their whole school has like a cookbook of all the students' favorite recipes. So that's just kind of some of the assignments to like a little general. Professor Cross, if you want to talk a little bit about like the 2D, the painting and drawing.
Erin, if you want me to jump to anything too, feel free to.
Okay. Like Professor Stern said, they are assignment based. I think it's interesting the variety that was chosen. For example, Emma Ryan got 3 pieces in, one being a 2D design methods final, which was the B. The colored pencil drawing, which was a Vanitas project in drawing 2. And then the painting was a independent study she did on trompe-l'oeil paintings. So, it's been nice. It's nice to see such a wide variety of classes, 2D classes being represented in the show.
And that I told you the books were from Graphic Design 4. The logo that is in here is from Intro to Digital Media. So literally the first class and the last class that's offered in the sequence. And then there's also, this is from typography. So obviously it's titled typography. So right on the nose.
And it's kind of, having taught in studio and the moved art history, and I see it's fascinating how we connect, all of these different institutions, how we do similar projects, of course, with various outcomes. Yeah.
I think it also speaks to the fact that even if you're not the most, you're not at that top level at drawing 3, graphic design 4, advanced ceramics, that you can still produce really successful work. Even at those introductory 2D, 3D, first drawing course where, sometimes the students feel like they're spending so much time on the fundamentals and the elements and principles of design and art, and they want to, make something really amazing. So it just goes to show how important those skills are, and that you can produce things with that are very successful even at that level, or even at that skill or knowledge base.
And remotely sometimes, you know what I mean? That's the other thing that you guys brought up that I was saying to Eric earlier today is, as an art historian, I have really felt for my studio colleagues, because even though I don't really like teaching art history remotely, it's easier to translate that into a virtual class. I mean, yeah, so it's a difficult thing to do. And we recently, we have a portfolio review process here every year. Our students go through a foundations program during their first 2 semesters. And then typically the first semester of their sophomore year, they have to do a portfolio review where they, hang their work throughout our building here, and faculty evaluates. And then they all give brief presentations about their work. It's kind of a gateway to upper level courses. And so much of the work that was done remotely, that we were evaluating recently. And I was just, like you said, I'm really impressed. Like the simplest materials, it doesn't matter. At times you can really use just about anything if you've got the idea and if you've got some skill. Yeah, I was really, I'm impressed here, and, I've been impressed here as well with what students have been able to do in this very difficult time. Yeah.
And this also pushed students some ways into having to learn how to document their work, because usually they just drop, like what we used to do is students would drop off the stuff at the gallery. The juror would come in, physically look at all of the work, and then decide, well, with this one, you had to look at images, but students had to get the correct images. Yes, they didn't have to submit the final images, but we have a lot of students who are willing to learn and learn that process. So that's another learning tool that helps them out in the long run.
Yeah.
I also think that in some ways, having to do some of these things remotely, doing critiques remotely or anything along those lines has actually helped in developing their design vernacular. So having to really be more articulate about how they're speaking about their work, I think that comes through in the critiques, because they have to, because we can't see all of those nuances, or they have to get better at kind of explaining the concept behind it and the process behind it, and in some ways documenting their process even more than ever. And digitally, and then being able to translate that to something else. So in some ways, we've had to rethink how we do things, but it's probably a good push as we see more and more virtual opportunities in our fields too.
Yeah, I would almost argue that I've noticed that I think the writing is improved in some of my art history classes just because of that, that necessity. I mean, always working on that anyway, teaching a lot of writing intensive classes, but yeah. And I think, again, this gets back to kind of professional practice, right? They have to learn how to document, they really, it's, you have to know how important it is not only to be able to document something and show it in a clear and precise way, but also to be able to write about it, to describe it. So these are the upsides of what we've been going through.
Mhm.
So it's about 6:40. Well, it's 6:36. I think it's time that we can kind of announce the winners.
We don't want to drag that out any longer. We don't want to make.
I know
I know.
students are like students and people viewing. So what it is we have 4 awards. We have Best of Show, we have first place graphic design, first place 2D, and first place 3D. I believe the Best of Show is awarded or will receive a check for $150, and
It's 125, but that
125. My apologies.
that was inflation. That was inflation.
Sorry, COVID inflation. And then the first places get, I don't want to mess this up, 75. So if you do get Best of Show or first in one of the 3 categories, you will be receiving a check. Were you doing it personal, or were we putting them in their mailbox?
We held off on issuing the checks because we didn't want it to be accidentally announced. So we will. I believe that'll be given to us, and then we can distribute them.
So I think the first places, and then we'll end with Best of Show. Heather, do you know those?
I lost your audio there for a minute. I didn't hear you.
I say we go through the first places, and then we'll end with the Best of Show.
Okay. Do you want me to do the honors?
Megan,
Okay. All right. So best 2-dimensional work is Living Room by Bailey Cordwin. Is that correct? And I didn't get to talk about this one.
That's right there to the left. Yep.
Yeah, real standout among the drawings. I mean, I'm a sucker for an interior domestic space, but the use of light here is just wonderful. I mean, it creates this atmospheric quality that I think we can all connect to, you know. And I know in my comments in the juror statement, I said something about like our domestic spaces, our homes are, you know, we're there all the time. I'm actually outside of my home tonight, which is kind of nice. But again, something we can connect to during this time of a pandemic. So yeah, I thought it was just really successful, very well done. And yeah, all about the atmosphere.
Congratulations.
Yay, congratulations, Bailey. Okay. All right. Best 3-dimensional work is Kanaloa by Tara Nunn.
Which piece is that one, Eric? Do you?
That's that one on
there to the right.
All right. All right. This was one of 2. Honestly, I kind of went back and forth between the 2. If I'm reading this correctly, again, difficult to read 3D works through images alone. I thought it was nice to see a throne vessel that was then coupled with some hand-built portions. A lot of detail on those kind of squid and octopus arms. Of course, referring back to this Hawaiian god. I found it effective in terms of the way the tentacles kind of envelop the vessel, and also the use of color and glazing on the surface of the vessel being evocative of that landscape. So again, it kind of got back to the ideas behind and the formal choices made. And congratulations, Tara. All right. All right. Best graphic design is Mixing Media by Cameron Swanson. Okay, so not unlike the experience design book that we looked at, of course, I saw a great deal of work that went into this book. I think it's in many ways the simple use of typography throughout, layout and formatting made it very legible, understandable, kind of simple. Love Kate Greenaway. Very simple kind of structure to the book, but a lot of information packed therein. And again, you know, not unlike the other, which was a standout as well, just really, you know, utilizing the typeface that connects to that particular artist, designer, etc. Yeah. And as I felt with both of these and this one, like that love for all of these influences, really kind of this book of, I don't know. I don't want to use the word gods. I don't know what I want to call it. You know, like when you're professors when you're younger in studio disciplines, and they're like, you know, put them up on your wall. You know, who influences you? Who are you thinking about? You know, do the research, learn more. Yeah. All right. And congratulations, Cameron. I don't know that. And then finally, I said quite a few things about this one already, but best of show is Emma Ryan's The Treehouse Treasures. Yay, Emma. I feel like I already said quite a lot about this one. I'm not sure what else I could add. Very interesting to know that it was a trompe-l'oeil assignment. But yeah, nostalgia. You know, it's all about looking back to the past, something we can all connect to. And just a wonderful choice of subject, and you know, very simply composed, but very effective, very dynamic, in an intimate and simple way.
Congrats, Emma.
Yay.
So again, there are some questions of, you know, Megan is controlling the PowerPoint currently. So if you're viewing, you can't get on there and click the buttons. That's Megan doing that. I will share this PowerPoint after on our Facebook page, where you can go through it at your own speed and leisure and really click through and stuff like that. So again, I apologize, but Megan's in control right now.
You should have let them click for a little while longer just to think that they were doing it.
If we do have seniors watching, we did learn something tonight going through this, that if you schedule the Facebook event, that if you do not bring it up within 10 minutes, it deletes the event.
Oh no.
So that's why the Facebook wasn't, but I did delete the Facebook and start it back up. So I apologize for those. But if you're going to do a Facebook event, you need to start it within that 10 minutes.
And we had it set to start 10 minutes early because we were trying to be proactive. So we set ourselves up there, I guess.
Yeah, that's my doing. But I'd rather learn through us and then for you guys, because our seniors have to do a virtual live event.
Mm-hmm.
And we currently have 5 seniors that are, so there's a lot of options that they can choose from. So this is an example of using the Google Slides. That creates PowerPoints that you can incorporate videos in now and things like this. So again, Megan's just kind of clicking through the other pieces I had to get in. Any other comments, questions? So you just got done going through another virtual show previous to this, Heather. What one was that? Virtual online, or is that in person?
Yeah, it was through Zoom. We've been doing a lot of our gallery receptions. We have a gallery in the basement of the Visual Arts Center, which is where I'm sitting now. Not basement, ground floor. I'm calling it basement. I'm sitting here on the second floor. It's a 6-story building. So we have a really nice gallery down there, and we have exhibits throughout the semester. We also have a gallery on campus called the Burke Gallery, that's a smaller gallery. So again, regular exhibits, 3 to 4 each semester, sometimes including student shows, sometimes a few more. But we've been using Zoom primarily for those virtual receptions and artist talks. So I guess it's made it easier in a lot of ways for artists that are on far off places to be able to give their talks. And so typically the gallery director, Jamie Platt, she introduces the artist. Today it was Michael Sherwin. Michael Sherwin's a photographer and professor at West Virginia University. And the exhibit downstairs right now is called Vanishing Points. And Sherwin's he's actually about to, I think the book goes to press next week. It's really beautiful photographic book, also called Vanishing Point. So it has a lot of the photos that will be in that book. Very interesting to me because a lot of the photographs deal with Native American sites. He's originally from Southwestern Ohio, so from this kind of region. And he's done a lot of extensive research and traveling to a lot of mound building sites throughout this area, which is kind of an interest of mine in terms of research into land art. and kind of had the connections between contemporary and modern land art to those ancient earthwork forms. So yeah, you should check it out. I think his website's just michaelsherwin.com or something like that. Pretty easy to remember. Yeah. So he gave the talk, and then after the talk, and it was pre-recorded. I think Jamie's been doing that a lot, having the artist or artists pre-record their comments. So she introduces, plays the actual artist talk, but then afterwards the artist is there to take questions. So nice little Q&A period. I had to jump out before it was quite over to jump in here.
That's like 1,000 miles you made it in just a few minutes. Amazing.
Right?
That's not even a rough estimate. It's actually 1,000 miles. I know that being from Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh. Well, it's quite a drive. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really great to, you know, be able to do this virtually. I think in some ways it allows people's families who aren't close to the school to be able to participate in these and to be able to see these, you know, remotely, and for them to understand what their, you know, what the students are doing in the classroom and in their education. So I think it's really some of the advantages for what's going on here. We got to stick to those and dwell on those advantages, because I do think that it's just going to continue in this direction. That, you know, all these virtual opportunities. I mean, you know, graphic design. I'm sure art has a lot of very similar opportunities and issues, but graphic design kind of looking at things like those integrated systems. We were talking about, you know, bridging the gap between online and offline environments with things like augmented reality and all those things that we think about traditionally with graphic design, and wayfinding, which has been around for, you know, forever. And we studied the Olympics in Mexico based on the amazing wayfinding system that they had. And now people are starting to use wayfinding in cities for using augmented reality to point out points of interest and transportation. So it's really interesting, I think, in some ways to this kind of force us to put even more of that kind of stuff into the curriculum, which is great because, you know, we're just going to see more and more of that as time continues to carry on. And it's all of these different skills that we have in doing things manually. You know, they have a life in where things are going as well. So it's great to think about, you know, how we can take all of these skills that we have in working that way and figure out how they translate to these digital environments and you know, how people are going to use it, because it really does help in terms of, or contribute to that idea of sustainability. It's sustainability for our fields. And so I'm kind of thrilled to really have this opportunity, and I'm glad that we got to test it out first. And I'm sure the seniors who are watching are thinking, yes, so are we. Because I think it is going to be really great for them to have this experience as part of their professional practice. And I think we've learned a lot from this experience tonight, even in setting this up and on all the research that Eric did and trying to figure out what was going to work in terms of modality and working on both platforms. So I hope the seniors who are watching this, and I can't see what they're doing in the chat, so if they are commenting, I hope that they have learned from this tonight and have some really great ideas in terms of how they might translate all this hard work that they're putting into their own shows.
Yeah, like you said, I could see a lot of galleries, even once we go back, if we ever do go back to a norm, still having gallery openings, but still doing them online, so people who can, because we have some former grad students that are currently in a show in Wichita, and just the platform they're using, it's kind of neat to do a virtual. It goes out, and if you click on their work, it actually has the artist doing a actual talk. So they're talking about their work. It's just by clicking. So it's not just the titles and the images, that you actually get to hear the artist talk about them. So that's kind of a neat platform, a new thing to do.
And Aaron, you've been doing some of those. Aaron's been highlighting some stuff in our collection and creating. Aaron, if you want to talk about those at all, some of the video work that you've been posting, sharing parts of our permanent collection.
Right. So, yeah, I've periodically, as I can, posted on YouTube some little collection chats where I choose a piece of artwork from the collection, and I do a little bit of research and use that YouTube platform as an educational tool, so that students or community at large, anyone who sees the video, can learn a little bit more about art and art that's in our collection, because we have some really great pieces. So yeah, so I've been doing that periodically as I can.
So is the gallery at Doane, the actual physical gallery, still where it's always been?
So,
or is there?
so
I'm
while,
just a curious question.
while you were there, it was down. It was in the library with the carpet.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's upstairs where the technology room used to be, which I don't know if you've ever been there. It's where they kept all like the extra cords, cables. Like it's upstairs. It's right outside the theater.
Okay.
So now it's a whole brand new gallery, new
Good.
lighting.
When they redid the Learning Commons, they built the structure into the gallery into that structure as part of that center there. So it has its own space. It's a small space, but it's a nice space, and it has a really great location. Then being right in front of the Heckman Auditorium, and then also right in front of the Perkins Learning Center, which means that you get a lot of foot traffic, which is also great.
Mm-hmm. That's good that it's more self-contained. Yeah, that's great.
So we have about 8 minutes left. Is there any other comments, questions?
I just wanted to make a comment about living room. It was the one previous, yes. This was a drawing one assignment for perspective. And normally I have the students do buildings, or we'll go to the Capitol building, we'll do the interior of the Lincoln Capitol building. But this is right when everything happened. We went into lockdown, and some students struggled to get work done. But this drawing here came out. It was such a gem of a piece, you know. So it has that extra feeling of, you know, that living room space. You know, it was a safe space, I think, you know, in that sense. So, but knowing that it came out of that lockdown right when everything was happening, all of that chaotic energy, the drawing has a wonderful calmness to it that I'm glad that you appreciated.
Yeah, that's I didn't realize that the timing, though, the specific context. That's
It has this aura of it's someone's whole world. It just has this like,
right?
Someone's whole world is right here in this single. So it definitely has that aura to it.
Definitely.
And and I know Eric pointed out before, but the juror's statement is in the center here, or you can kind of go through the slides to select that as well. So if you wanted to read her statement completely, we know she likes writing intensive, so I'm sure she spent time honing that statement. So please take the time to give it a reading.
I had to shrink the font a little bit to get it all in.
I know. I started writing.
So I mean, with 5 minutes left, you know, I want to thank you very much, Heather, for taking the time to, especially with everything things going on, and in your part of the area with all the bad weather and without electricity and all that, for being able to take time and juror a great show and, you know, read a great artist statement. So again, thank you for doing that and coming back to Doane for a little bit.
Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure. And yeah, as Eric said, it was like right in the midst of all of this, we had 2 ice storms in a row. It was insanity here. Marshall was out of school for a week, which is unheard of, but most of Huntington was without power. It was when virtual no longer works, you know. Right. Nature is still in control.
We were talking about it earlier today. There are parts of the world that the entire year round never have 100-degree difference. And in the last 2.5 weeks in Nebraska, we've had a swing of 100 degrees between our high and our low, which is, the weather has been crazy the last few weeks. So everybody has had their own kind of version of that. But we appreciate you taking the time to participate in this, and to, like Eric said, to juror a great show. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, the only time I've ever experienced that kind of a temperature shift was in Nebraska. I learned firsthand.
Also, thank you, Megan, for being the little guide and our little tour guide through this.
I hope the comments are happy with my clicking. Sorry.
So thank you for doing that. And then again, just thanks to all the faculty that keep up, and our students keep up the hard work and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. Again, as I said, it's all great work, and like we said before, even if these introductory courses, you can do great work in it and just advance from it, and keep on getting better and better and pushing yourselves. But again, I know the whole art department and the art and design department is really happy with all of this, and what we continue to see to do currently, what's going on, which is being created in today's classroom. So again, keep up the great work. We're excited to see what the future has to bring.
Yeah, congratulations to everyone in this show, and I mean also just kudos to everyone that submitted work. That's important. Yeah.
So with that, I think we're about 3 minutes, unless something pops up or something. But again, we tried this; it worked out. We had a little bit of error. It just goes to show that before you do this, practice, test it out, try it. We tested it 3 times, that we thought we had it working, and we learned from it. So again, I'm glad we did it tonight. But with that, I think we're going to end this broadcast. And again, thanks to everybody. I will post this just in a little bit. After I put the award winners onto the PowerPoint, I will post it to Facebook so that you can go through it at your own speed and leisure. So with that.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Yes, good night. Enjoy your evening.